Welcome to AskFOI, where we answer the most common questions we receive about prophecy, Israel, and the Bible. With me today, Steve Herzig. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, great to be here, Steve.
So thankful you're here for this question. This is one we hear a lot, and I think it's one our audience could use some help with because I run into this from time to time with fellow believers. Christians believe that Jesus the Messiah will literally, physically, and visibly return to the earth. However, sometimes we need help differentiating between the second coming and the rapture. How do you help people understand those differences?
Well, first, Steve, let me explain that Jesus' second coming is a Jewish coming. He's, of course, coming into the world, but he's coming to Israel. He's coming specifically to the Mount of Olives. The prophet Zechariah tells us that, and the topography will change. So that program of Jesus coming is a Jewish issue, of course, with Gentiles benefiting as well. So this idea of the rapture, how is that different than the second coming? Some people actually put them together, but the differences are striking. First of all, there is a time of Jacob's trouble described in Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 7. That's, unfortunately, I have to tell you, that's for Israel too. That's not for the church. That unique period of time is given to bring Israel to its knees to look up and receive their Messiah. We read about that in Revelation chapter 6 all the way to Revelation 19. That's the tribulation period. So there's this mystery, the church, an organism of Jew and Gentile who come together. And so before this period promised to Israel, God gave this mystery of the church, and they're his bride, and he doesn't want to beat up on his bride. Now, that doesn't mean people don't have tribulation. Jesus said, in the world you'll have tribulation, but it's not talking about this most unique period of time. So we have this time that's really going to be an awful period of time. It tells us in 1 Thessalonians, it tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, it tells us in John 14 that there's going to be a time when the church, again a mystery, is going to be snatched up in the air. I love that hymn, "There is going to be a meeting in the air in the sweet, sweet by and by." I remember that song very well. As we think about that, Steve, that's not him coming down to the earth. That's us going to meet him in the air, as 1 Thessalonians talks about. Paul writes, in the twinkling of an eye. So it's fast, it's sudden, and we avoid that 70th week of Daniel, that period of chapter 6 to 19, and even Jesus' description of the tribulation in Matthew chapter 24 and 25. So the rapture is imminent. That means it could happen at any time, and we've been living 2,000 years, it hasn't happened yet, but that doesn't mean it won't happen, and it won't happen suddenly. Yet the second coming is after a 7-year definite period of time prescribed. So in one instance, we go up. In another instance, he's coming down. In one instant, it could be any time. And in another instant, it's time sensitive. So these are differentiated, which, by the way, to me seems simple. I know it gets complicated, but God has a program for Israel. And that is, hey, you got to go 70 weeks. You got to go the whole 70 as a corporate nation. But to the church, he said, I could come at any time. Steve, think about that. We're always living on the edge. It could be at any moment. If anything, the church needs to be riled up to say, don't you realize today could be the day? You know, in the first century, they used to say, Maranatha, even so come. That's every meeting they had when they left. That's how they would end the meeting, Maranatha. They were saying it could happen today. When we think of the second coming, the people on the earth during that period of time, if they read the scripture, they'll know that it has to proceed according to plan. So to me, it's easy to differentiate these two things.
Steve, I think your answer is the best answer I've ever heard on this, because I think what this will help people do is to differentiate what's being accomplished in the rapture and what is being accomplished in the second coming. So to kind of summarize that, what would you say is being accomplished in the rapture and what's being accomplished by the second coming?
The rapture brings the bride of Christ to himself. We're going to have a bridal dinner, a banquet. We're going to be with our husband, as it were, this unique body of people. The second coming fulfills the promise that God gave to Israel, that he would come powerfully and would put down those who oppress them, where the wolf will lie down with the lamb, weapons of war will be turned into instruments of agriculture. That will be a period of time where he rules and reigns from Israel, as the king that he is, but he'll be the king that people will be able to see and touch, and what a day that will be.
Powerful truths. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.